Good morning. This is KELOLAND on the go with all you need to know in news and weather as you start your day.
Sioux Falls police are investigating a stabbing that sent a man to the hospital over the weekend. The stabbing happened in the drive-thru of the Giliberto's restaurant on South Minnesota Avenue at 2:45 Sunday morning. Police say the 34-year-old driver had several stab wounds to his neck and multiple stab wounds to his forearm.
He was taken by ambulance to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police are looking for the suspect, who they say was in the passenger seat and appears to be an acquaintance of the victim. Stay with KELOLAND News on air and online for updates on this developing story. Later in the day, Sioux Falls police were called to the scene of a motorcycle crash at 14th and Phillips. Authorities told our news crew on scene that an SUV turning left onto 14th from Phillips collided with a motorcycle. The officer says the SUV failed to yield while turning left on green.
The driver of the motorcycle was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Both the passenger of the motorcycle and the driver of the SUV were not hurt. A driver was taken to the hospital following a crash southwest of Harrisburg. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Office says it happened just before 4:30 Sunday afternoon. Authorities say that a pickup was eastbound when the driver fell asleep. The pickup then went over the center line and into the ditch.
The pickup vaulted over a driveway approach, went into the air, and stopped in a bean field. Officials say the driver suffered serious non-life-threatening injuries and was ticketed for careless driving and no seat belt. One person was taken to the hospital following a crash east of Hayti over the weekend. The Hamlin County Sheriff's Office says it happened just after 9 o'clock Saturday night at the intersection of Highway 81 and Highway 21. Authorities say a passerby had reported a downed motorcycle and a man bleeding from the head.
A deputy arriving on scene found that the driver of the motorcycle was taken to the hospital by a private vehicle. During an investigation, officials learned that the motorcycle was turning onto Highway 81 when the driver lost control on some gravel on the road. The driver is charged with driving while license is revoked and no insurance. Investigators in Rapid City are looking into what sparked a fire at Monument Health over the weekend. Officials say crews were called to the hospital just before noon Saturday for reports of a fire on the second floor. Firefighters arriving on scene found smoke and heat in an office inside an operating room.
Authorities say the sprinklers activated, keeping the fire at bay. There was heavy fire, smoke, and water damage to the area. However, no one was hurt and patient care was not impacted.
Now let's get a check of our weather with meteorologist Scott Munt. We're in for another hot day, Scott.
That we are. Not only for today, but for some of us in eastern and southeastern KELOLAND, this heat can continue right into about midweek going into Wednesday. Temperatures today in the 90s and the 100s. The 100s will be found in central, South Dakota. Heat will continue into tomorrow. And as I mentioned, southeastern KELOLAND, maybe even into Wednesday. We'll have to watch our storm chances. Midweek, I would say mainly western, central, northern South Dakota. May have to wait until the weekend across the southeast. More details on your forecast with Brian coming up.
All right, thank you very much, Scott. Well, if you plan on taking your boat out on any lakes in South Dakota, you may come across a watercraft inspection station.
Game, Fish, and Parks conducts the inspections to look for and limit the spread of aquatic invasive species. They check that drain plugs have been pulled and that live wells, motors, and hulls are clean and dry.
Just making sure that live well's drained, making sure that plug's out, all the plugs on the boats. Another common thing we see is jet skis. Not many people are aware that your jet skis or your personal watercrafts do have plugs in them that they have, and those got to be pulled too for sure. You got to pull those out.
Harmon says the inspection stations will operate through September. Game, Fish, and Parks Department has rules regarding aquatic invasive species on its website, which are a link to this story on KELOLAND.com. Saturday marked the return of a hometown artist. Levitt at the Falls hosted Mato Waiui, who grew up in Sioux Falls before coming onto the scene as an up-and-coming hip-hop artist.
His most recent work is being a composer for the FX's Hulu series Reservation Dogs, where he says it's been fun as he's never composed for television before.
The showrunner, Sterling Harjo, he was just a fan of my personal music. And so he reached out and asked if I was down to do it. And I produce all of my own music, so I make all of the beats and write the chords and stuff like that. So
The next South Dakota native set to perform at the Levitt is Franklin Waln, who grew up on the Rosebud Reservation. That concert is on July 7th. And fathers and their families across KELOLAND celebrated Father's Day yesterday.
Some dads spent the weekend at Yogi Bear Jellystone Park, where they got to spend some quality time with their loved ones and reflect on the joys of raising children.
Just having the littles run around all the time, seeing their growth, seeing them, how they grow, and just making sure that they get what they need when they need it.
And here's hoping all the dads out there had a great Father's Day weekend.
Looks like they did. Well, that's a look at some of our top stories.
Now let's get one last look at your weather with meteorologist Brian Karstens. Brian?
All right, our weather update. Well, temperatures today back to the 90s in much of KELOLAND, even a few spots close to 100 today. Here on Chamberlain Pier, that area seems to be the most favorable belt for that kind of weather. Aberdeen, though, not far behind, and there's definitely a steady south wind, which actually pulls more moisture out of the ground, the last thing we need. We're looking at the overnight winds, too, fairly solid. So when we wake up tomorrow morning, not expecting much of a drop on temperatures, probably close to 80 in Huron and Aberdeen if this projection continues. And then we're going to go right back up again here, upper 80 or upper 90s in some of these locations, East River, Sioux Falls, probably close to where we're at today. I would say a little better than 90. And then maybe some thunderstorms in central South Dakota tomorrow night. The Storm Prediction Center wanted to weigh in on that. They put out a slight risk in a narrow corridor there. But along that front, you could get the conditions ripe enough here for some wind. And looking at just the setup there for parts of central South Dakota, some hail as well. Now, here's the frontal boundary that creates these conditions. You can see that it's right there, draped into the middle of South Dakota tomorrow night. And that feature, it's not going to move much. So there could be reoccurring scattered thunderstorms midweek in central South Dakota. I just think right now the odds of Sioux Falls getting involved, not very high until we get to the weekend. We could even tease by Friday, but it's a slow pattern to really unfold here. And so what you'll see here is the recurring development of scattered rain in western and central South Dakota. So there's going to be quite a difference on weekly precipitation totals when we look at Rapid City, even Pierre versus Sioux Falls. So I know that 100-degree heat in Pierre, not a good way to start the week, but you probably have better shots of getting rain than Sioux Falls. At this point, I'm inclined to wait at least until Friday night, if not Saturday, before we introduce the rain chance. It does cool a little bit for Sioux Falls, though. We're not quite as hot by Thursday and Friday. Aberdeen also at least will pull the 90s out. That's helpful. And then if we can start to get some 30 and 40% chances of rain, the hope is that some of this migrating from Wyoming and Colorado will try to impact portions of South Dakota. And it's not just a one-day deal. This is actually going to repeat for the central and west. So that's the big takeaway here. We start the front end of the forecast hot. Then we're going to drop those temperatures in the 80s, even for Rapid City, briefly touching 90 today. But that's it. Then it's going to go back to the 70s by Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Check out the complete timeline and details at our website, KELOLAND.com.